point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 541st edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell, the Invisible Man.
In the flesh, but not in the studio.
You say that every week. This show is about energy and climate change, and actually what it is a show of the week's news in energy and climate change that I have compiled. It comes from my blog, geoharvey.com, which you can visit. I put up about 15 items per day. And we choose the three that we think are the best for representing what's actually going on in climate and energy. And those are used in the show.
Basically, yes. I mean, this is we're facing a lot of problems if we don't do something about burning things.
Yeah, that's true. It's all about burning things, and if we can stop burning things. And there's one of the articles that I found this week, and it's about 3/4 of the way through the show, tells me kind of how easy it would be to do everything we need to do to stop climate change if we would just do it.
Say that sentence again.
Okay, we have an article. It's about 3/4 of the way through.
Just the last 4 words.
I don't remember the last 4 words, but I'll tell you that.
Do it.
The article says how easy it will be to address climate change if we just do it.
That's the words I wanted you to repeat.
Ah, I'm glad I got them. Okay.
If we just do it.
If we just do it. Okay, if you're watching this on a computer, you can scroll down and see down below a couple of links. One of them goes to a website, and the other one is a link to download a file. In both cases, you can get a listing of all the pictures we're using, by the way, but also the synopsis and the link to the original article. You can also get them by going to geoharvey.com. So you've got
some of these articles are very interesting and in depth.
Yeah.
Some of them are long.
Some of them are long, but some of them are really worth taking a look at.
Well, if you got the time, I urge you to do it.
Okay, we're starting on Thursday, September 14th, which is a week ago today. And
that was my birthday.
That was what?
My birthday.
Your birthday?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And happy birthday, belatedly. I think I said that last show, didn't I?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, we're starting on the 14th of September. And we will go up to yesterday, which was the 20th of September, today being the 21st. We almost always record this show on Thursdays. And we're starting out with the events in the Libyan city of Derna, which I think a lot of people will know that a large part of Derna was wiped out by the thing they call a medicane, which is essentially a hurricane in the Mediterranean, which caused flooding. And the flooding the flooding caused 2 dams to break, and they just destroyed a lot of Derna. But this is from CNN. What do you have for title, Tom?
What we know about the floods that killed thousands in Libya.
Okay, over 6,000 people have died as of Wednesday morning, according to the Health Ministry Undersecretary of the Unity Government in Tripoli. one of the two rival governments operating in the country. Storm
That's
Daniel.
it. Rival governments, huh?
Two rival governments. Basically, there's been a civil war going on for the last 10 or 12 years. And one side has eastern Libya and the other side has western. And it's really brought the country down badly.
It sounds pretty screwy.
Yeah. Storm Daniel caused floods that broke 2 dams, destroying much of the city of Derna. Derna had a population of 90,000, I think. It's kind of hard to know exactly how many. Since that time, since the time that this article was written, the count of the dead people has gone to 11,300. It's probably still going to go up.
It started at 6,000 people, so it's almost doubled.
Yeah, that's right. And a large part of what you see in this picture has been leveled. Now, I want to point out in the lower right-hand corner of this picture is a dark area, which is a cliff, I believe.
Looks like a cliff.
Yeah, and there are at the location of Derna, there are areas that in Arabic are called wadis. I believe that a wadi is a intermittent stream or river.
I was going to say it's a dried up river.
Yeah. And these things were dammed, but because of the Civil War, the dams were not maintained.
Oh.
And the dams broke, possibly because they were not maintained. So this is a serious problem that people in that area have had and are still having. Now they're worried about all kinds of diseases breaking out because they haven't got a good water supply, and there's probably 70,000 or more people still living there. This is a very messy situation.
Sounds messy to me.
Yeah. So we can wish that people would do better and have a better time, but they're actually talking about ending the Civil War because of this.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, it hasn't been a war that has had a lot of shooting, I don't think, but it's caused a serious problem here. Okay, we should keep going because we're running a little bit behind. Okay, our next picture is wind turbines. This is BP supplied the image. This is from Renews.
World's heading for 2.5 degrees centigrade global warming.
This is not good. The world is on a 2.5 degrees Celsius warming trajectory, according to Wood Mackenzie's Energy Transition Outlook report. If transformative action is not taken now, the Paris Agreement goal to limit average temperature increase to below 1.5 degrees Celsius will very likely be missed, the report
concluded. That's not good news.
No, this is not good news. I'm going to put that picture up so people can see it. This is not good news. And they're trying, but there's so much dissent and divisiveness in the world that it's really hard to get people to agree on things. And, it's kind of heartbreaking.
Everybody's got their own axe to grind.
Yeah, we need to address climate change. That's going to take some work. And what are we doing instead? We're worried about a war in Ukraine.
Yeah.
This is not good. And that war in Ukraine, by the way, I want to mention this. The Russians, before the war, about 20 years, not 20 years, 17 years, something like that, before that war, which started in 2014, the Russians signed an agreement to guarantee Ukraine the sovereignty of all its lands in exchange for Ukraine giving up its nuclear weapons. So, I ask, would you trust Russia? All right, we should keep going, Tom.
I think good.
We have a picture of a people in a business meeting, and it's just, a people in a business meeting.
Boardroom.
Yeah. This is from an organization called Kroll, Kroll.
Kroll study shows stronger investment returns for firms with high ESG ratings. And for those of us like me who didn't know what ESG stands for, it's environmental, social, and governance.
Yeah. And high ESG ratings means that you're paying attention to the needs of people around you, your employees, and so forth, and the environment. Kroll, an independent global risk and financial advisor, analyzed data from over 13,000 companies across industries around the globe and found that companies with high environmental, social, and governance ratings outperformed those with lower ratings.
That's interesting.
So get greedy and lose money. That's the way it works. Okay, we're up to Friday, September 15th, and we have
a picture there of a solar array in Florida. How can they tell that it's in Florida?
Because it says so in the caption.
On it, doesn't it?
Huh?
Because the sign says FIU.
Yeah, that's right. Do you happen to know what FIU is?
I would guess something like Florida International University or something like that.
I looked it up and I forget, but that's close enough. This is from Canary Media.
Florida is now adding more solar power than any other state.
Yeah, Florida has long ranked a distant third place behind California and Texas in installed solar, but now it's installing more solar panels than any other state. This is despite its having a policy landscape considerably more challenging than what's found in other states.
That's interesting.
Isn't it? That picture, by the way, I'm gonna put it back up so people can see. That actually is a picture of solar panels put over a parking lot. And if you look in the gap there on the left side, you can actually see a car parked under it.
Yes.
So, that was, now we're back to ABC News. You have a picture of a man with a tuna. Imagine that.
Good sized fish.
It's a good sized fish. And as I said, this is from ABC News.
Climate change takes habitat from big fish, the ocean's key predators.
Yes, this year's marine heat waves and spiking ocean temperatures foretell big changes for some of the largest fish in the sea. Loss of habitat could largely overcome some of the most important predators from the, remove some of the most important predators from the ocean, including commercially important seafood species. And one of those species is, of course, tuna.
So that could affect us.
What's that?
That will affect us.
Oh, it sure will. I used to live in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and we could get pretty fresh tuna. I used to fix tuna steaks like pork chops. My kids liked that. Okay, our next image is a Renault Zoe. I say Renault because the Winter Olympics had a sponsor in Renault, and they called it on television the Renault Dauphine. And of course, the actual name of the company in French is Renault.
Yes.
But I always say Renault because I'm forgetful. Anyway, this is from Clean Tech.
Well, that's a Renault Zoe, and Zoe means life.
That's right. What do you got for a title?
EV sales growing faster than forecasted. Oil demand peaked in 2019.
Yeah, RMI, that's Rocky Mountain Institute, but now it's actually just RMI, shows that the rapid growth of EVs, electric vehicles, means that global oil demand for cars has already peaked and will free fall by 2030.
Wow.
The new driver of change is economics. Because battery costs enjoy learning curves, the total cost of ownership price parity has been reached.
Well, they're doing some interesting things like renting batteries rather than selling them. And
yeah.
They're There's changes coming, and for the most part, they're for the better.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Okay, Tom, we're up to Saturday, September 16th. We have a picture of the, let me get it. This is the Aswan Dam, or Aswan High Dam, it's very often called. Doesn't look like much of a dam, does it?
No, it doesn't, but it is.
Yeah, and this is a dam. I remember when this thing was built. I think it must have been about 1957, 58, something like that. But it was built across the Nile near the southern border of Egypt, which created a lake that extended around southern Egypt, which controlled the dam. But the lake also backed up into Sudan. And this is, as I said, ZME Science. What do you got for a title?
Solar energy and climate change are killing future hydro plants in Africa.
Yeah, about 1.2 billion people live in Africa, and improved standards of living, they are using more electricity. The plan on how to do that is changing, however. Power dams are getting less cost effective as solar power gets cheaper and water is made less available by climate change. The rivers that feed the dams are not carrying as much water as they used to. And at that very same time, solar power is getting cheaper, and it's going to keep getting cheaper in all probability. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So we have a picture now of a monarch butterfly.
Pretty butterfly.
You know, Tom,
I used to see a lot of them in Brattleboro. I hardly ever see one anymore.
I see a couple every summer. In the last few summers, I've seen a couple. But they are definitely not as common as they were. It used to be in the summer, I could go out, and if I wanted to see monarch butterflies, I'd find 2 or 3 of them easily any day that it wasn't raining.
Right in your backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. I could just walk around and find them. They were among the commonest insects around, and now, and they're among the most interesting because they migrate. And
huge distances they migrate.
Huge distances, but the individual butterflies don't migrate that far. What they do is they'll migrate from Brattleboro to Virginia and then lay eggs and die. And then the larvae hatch and they keep migrating south and then they die.
How do they know?
Yeah, I don't know. You know, this is science. What can you say? Anyway, we have a title, and this is from Clean Technica. What's the title?
Interior Department announces more than $40.6 million for efforts to conserve America's most imperiled species.
Yeah, the Interior Department announced over $40.6 million in grants through the United States Fish and Wildlife Service to 10 states and the U.S. Virgin Islands to support land acquisition and conservation planning projects for 65 listed species.
Well, that's a step in the right direction, anyhow.
I think it is. You know, we've got to take care of the environment. If we're not going to take care of the environment, we're not going to survive.
It's not going to take care of us.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to object. Mother Nature, you know, this reminds me of that, was it a butter margarine commercial, and you have a person saying something, and all of a sudden you have thunder and lightning and this goddess creature saying it's not nice to fool Mother Nature.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, and now we have a Joby Aviation. This is an electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle, which is EVTOL.
Very interesting.
Yeah, and this is Clean Technica, and we're going to get back to this. There's a second article about these.
Yeah, we'll be touching base on this again.
Yeah.
Well, NREL and Joby Aviation Partnership spotlights green ride-hailing flight services.
Amazing. When Joby Aviation wanted to find the environmental impact of its future all-electric aerial ride-hailing service,
That's interesting.
yeah, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, or what I call NREL, which has done years of sustainable aviation research, helped provide a technological bird's eye view. So Joby wanted to find out what was going on, and NREL has been helping them. And as I said, we will get back to this.
That's an interesting looking plane.
Yeah, that is.
It looks like the motors turn around and point straight up and down.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see this later on. I think they do.
They have to do that.
Yeah, I think they do that. And this thing can actually go 200 miles an hour. That's faster than I can run.
An aerial ride-hailing service. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Sunday, September 17th. And this particular next item is from an organization called Midday. I don't really know much about that, but
Don't either.
it reports the news. What do you got for a title?
G20 leaders commit to triple renewable energy capacity by 2030 and achieve global net zero by 2050. Good luck, guys.
Yeah. In a significant move on climate change issues at the G20 summit, the leaders agreed to go for rapid, deep, and sustained reductions in global greenhouse gas emissions by 43% by 2030.
That's significant.
It is. Relative to the 2019 levels to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. You know, we've got a mess on our hands already, and we haven't even hit 1.5 degrees. And as we said earlier in this show, somebody, I forget who it was, says that we are heading toward 2.5 degrees. I just find it hard to imagine that we could survive at 2.5 degrees, because the storms that have already got stronger will get that much stronger yet. The ocean temperatures will get higher.
As the ocean temperatures get higher, we get more storms.
Yeah, and we'll have more droughts, and we'll have more wildfires. And things have been so bad in the last couple of years. They're going to be much, much worse if we don't act really fast. And honestly,
we've got to take some drastic measures.
Yeah, I don't think reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 43% by 2030, I don't think that's enough.
I think I agree with you.
They should have done that 15 years ago. They're late.
I'll give you 10 anyhow.
Yeah. Okay, our next picture is a picture of Poison Ivy. You remember that song, Poison Ivy?
Oh, yeah.
My ex-wife and her, the story is that one of them, either my ex-wife or her sister, got poison ivy really, really badly. And whichever it was, the other one of the two played that song over and over and over and over again as loud as they could, just to make life more miserable for her sister. And I knew that happened before we got married. I should have just said, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to be involved in this family. But I knew it happened, but I took my chances and lost. Okay, this is from NPR, which is
National Public Radio.
Yeah, I was going to say that myself. What do you got for a title?
Poison ivy is poised to be one of the big winners of a warming world.
Yeah.
Well, good for poison ivy.
Yeah, poison ivy is poised. How do you like that? Poison ivy is poised to be one of the big winners in this global human-caused phenomenon. Scientists expect the dreaded three-leafed vine will take full advantage of warmer temperatures and rising levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to grow faster, bigger, and more toxic.
Not good news.
Not good news. I used to work when I was 16 or so, I worked in a cemetery, and my job was to take hand clippers and remove the poison ivy that was growing over the gravestones.
Interesting.
And I never got poison ivy. I haven't had it in my entire life.
That's good.
Yeah, it's good. And, I think I must be a little bit immune to it. But I got to tell you, I respect it. I
Sure.
do not touch it. And that's part of the reason I've never had poison ivy.
Leaves tree, let it be.
Yeah, that's right. You got it. That's exactly correct. Okay. Our next piece here is we have a picture of people on Antarctica.
Interesting picture.
Isn't it? That's, what do you say to a thing like that? And this is from the BBC. And one of the things that I thought is, I bet somebody on that boat was saying, I'd like to go under that. But you don't want to go under something like that.
For.
Huh?
It looks like that's what it's made for.
Yeah, it does. It's made for you to get under it and then collapse on you. You don't want to try that. Okay, what do you got for a title?
Antarctic sea ice at mind-blowing low alarms expert.
Yeah. Satellite data shows the sea ice surrounding Antarctica is well below any previous recorded winter level, a worrying new benchmark for a region that once seemed resistant to global warming. An unstable Antarctica could have far-reaching consequences, polar experts warn. And the polar experts are not kidding.
No, that's not good news.
No, it's not good news. And of course, it's happening at both Antarctica and the Arctic. There's a lot less ice. I was looking at a picture of the Arctic recently, and I saw that the Arctic is actually, this summer, there are actually multiple paths to get between, say, Europe and China or Japan by going through the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah.
You can go north of Russia, or you can go through Canadian waters.
It didn't used to be able to do that.
It was rare. You could do it rarely. And I remember when I was a teenager, there was a tanker that was built that was a combination of tanker and icebreaker. And the idea was, you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the idea was that it would be able to get through Canadian waters to I think it was going to carry oil from the northern parts of Alaska or something like that. This is before the pipeline from Barrow. It wasn't Barrow. It was, I forget the name of it was from the oil fields in northern Alaska. That before the pipeline was built,
It had to go by sea.
Yeah, you would have to get it out by sea, and they thought that might be an interesting way to do things. I don't know what happened to that ship. I think it kind of got converted to something else because it didn't work very well. Okay, our next story is going to show, this is a picture of solar panels, and I don't know what the yellow flower is. It might be canola, which is...
Oh, I bet it is.
Yeah. I can't tell. Anyway, this is from Renews.
And it says, and I quote, Ørsted to develop 400 megawatts of Irish solar.
Yeah. Ørsted disclosed that it is developing a 400 megawatt portfolio of Irish solar projects in a partnership with Irish renewable energy developer Terra Solar. The sites could power over 90,000 Irish homes. That's a lot.
That's for sure.
This brings further momentum to Ørsted's solar pipeline in Ireland, which now totals over 600 megawatts. Now
they're talking about land-based, aren't they?
They sure are. Yeah, this is land-based solar. Well, I don't know. I didn't see anything about floating solar. Well, there could be floating solar in Ireland, but my guess is that nearly all, at least.
Doesn't have much water.
Yeah, nearly
There's
all.
water in the Irish Sea, but I mean, it's between England and Ireland.
Yeah,
And the Isle of Man.
yeah, yeah. I had ancestors from the Isle of Man.
Did you?
Yeah. William Kennish was an ancestor of mine.
Uh-huh.
He was an inventor and a poet.
Oh.
And he was a master carpenter for the Royal Navy, and he invented a way of correcting the broadside guns on those big old ships, you know, which had gun ports all up and down the sides, correcting them so that they could correct for parallax, so that all of the guns could point at the same thing.
That's interesting.
And but I think he did a lot of things. He mapped out he was the first person hired by the United States government to survey for a Panama Canal.
Ah.
Yeah, that was in the middle of the 19th century.
This is an interesting picture because it shows a good picture of agrophotovoltaics.
Yeah, I think you're right there. So anyway, we should go on to our next item, which is from.
And we'll see risky business, huh?
Yeah, risky business. Let's put that up. This is from the Rapid City Journal. And you know,
and it says, and I quote,
yeah,
climate change could bring more monster storms like Hurricane Lee to New England. Now, that's not good news.
No, it's not. When it comes to hurricanes, New England can't compete with Florida or the Caribbean. But scientists said the arrival of storms like Atlantic Storm Lee could become more common in places such as the Gulf of Maine as the planet warms. Now, you know, Lee had one day, it was a Category 1 storm.
Yeah, 2 days later it was Category 5.
Actually, one day later. It went from 85 mile an hour wind to 165 mile an hour winds in
like
one
overnight.
day. Yeah. And then it turned north, and it caused a little bit of mischief for the coast of New England. Didn't do much weather-wise to New England. I mean, there were winds and so forth. But having that potential for a storm like that to turn north and hit Long Island, for example, is
So rapidly.
yeah, grow rapidly and hit Long Island. Does that sound like a good idea to you?
I've got better ideas all the time.
Yeah, I'll bet you do. This is and one of the things here is the lobster fishers. I've been, you know, watching this thing. When I was in college, I had a roommate named Steve Peterson, who was one of my favorite people, he was raised and he lived basically his entire life, although he was in the Coast Guard for a few years. He lived his entire life on an island in Casco Bay. Yeah. And, you know, I went up there and I met his father, and he decided after he got out of the Coast Guard that he was going to go back to college, finish college, become accredited as a teacher, and teach elementary school. And he lived on Peaks Island in Casco Bay and taught on the mainland. So,
okay.
But you know, the first year I was in college, I was hearing stories about lobster fishing, a lot of them. So I couldn't get past this story without thinking of him. Okay, we have some more stuff about the sea. And what we have next is a picture of a little bitty sea turtle.
Looks like a bird almost.
Almost. And this is from the Tico Times.
Costa Rica's sea turtle decline linked to climate change.
Yeah. The effects of climate change are increasingly evident in various parts of the planet. The repercussions of climate change include rising sea levels, high sea temperatures, and more. Experts from the APM Terminals Turtle Conservatory Program, man, what a name, say it results in fewer sea turtles hatching. And you know, among the turtles, I don't know whether it's, I think it's just some species. The question of whether an individual turtle will be male or female depends upon where it is in the nest.
Is that so?
Yeah, the ones higher up in the nest are exposed to more changes in temperature. The ones lower down, the temperature is more constant and slightly cooler. And that difference dictates the sex of the turtle.
That was pretty strange to me.
It is pretty strange, but you know, I only mention that because it kind of indicates that there's a lot of there are a lot of very subtle things going on in species, and we could lose these sea turtles simply because of climate change.
Yeah.
So we're up to Tuesday, September 19th.
All day.
And we have a picture of a cornfield.
That's what they tell me it is.
The story is from the Virginia Mercury, and this is the story that I was talking about earlier that I thought was so interesting.
A bright spot at the intersection of farming, EVs, and solar energy.
Right. Across the United States, more than 30 million acres of farmland is devoted to growing corn for ethanol.
That seems kind of counterproductive, doesn't it?
It's known to be counterproductive. The carbon footprint of corn ethanol is actually higher than the carbon footprint of gasoline without it.
Wow.
And the reason why they introduced the corn ethanol was so the United States could produce more of its own energy. So, you know, I should finish reading this synopsis. NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, calculated that we could power the country's entire electricity grid with 10 million acres of solar panels. So we could get all of our electricity out of 10 million acres, and we are devoting 30 million acres to growing corn for ethanol.
It doesn't sound like it makes much sense.
It doesn't make any sense at all. Solar panels pay taxes, corn doesn't. Solar panels don't need water, corn does. We can just go on and on about this.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, if you look at our energy, 37.7% is electricity. So 10 million acres can produce 37.7% of our energy. And if the remaining part of that energy could be produced in a similar number of acres, what we would come up with is
We
that
get more than we need.
yeah, we would be able to get all of our energy out of 27 million acres, and we're devoting 30 million acres to corn for corn ethanol, which is not really good anymore. What is going on here?
Yes.
No, it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. But of course, there's political things in play that are very important. You can't just, you know, stop the corn ethanol program because there's too much going on in politics. And that's what's happening. Our politics are working very much to our disadvantage.
Well, the future is solar panels with plants underneath them.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. Or animals underneath them.
Agrophotovoltaics.
Huh?
Agrophotovoltaics.
Yeah, plants or animals, because one of the things that they do under solar panels a lot is sheep, because it turns out that you can, in terms of the number of sheep per acre, you can have as many sheep with the solar panels as you would have without them. So, why not just put up the solar panels? Okay,
Yeah.
we will go on to our next thing, and we have a picture of Rajasthan.
Looks like a desert to me.
Well, it looks like a desert. Maybe that's because it is a desert.
Could have fooled me.
Yeah, but it's got a lot of trees in it.
On the edge of it does, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah. This is from PV Magazine, India.
As fossils. Oh, well, it doesn't. Forget I said as. Fossil share in Rajasthan's power mix drops to 50% as solar and wind surge.
The share of fossil fuels.
Inevitable.
Yeah. The share of fossil fuels in Rajasthan's power generation mix hit a record low level of 50% from April to July this year. This is the same time that the lowest level has been sustained for over a quarter, the first time that the lowest level has been sustained for over a quarter of the year, according to a new report by Ember. Ember is an energy think tank. So, there you go. Oh, we're back to Joby.
Looks like it's the same aircraft we looked at earlier.
It is the same aircraft, but you remember you said that you thought maybe they were pivoting their propellers.
Rotors.
Yeah, their rotors. Well, there you've got it, right there.
There you go.
You have a picture of the two aircraft on the ground, and they have to pivot them to do that. So this is from ABC News.
Hundreds of flying taxis to be built in Ohio.
Ohio. Joby Aviation Incorporated has been selected to build an electric air taxi manufacturing site at the Dayton International Airport, according to Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and others. There's a big ceremony. There are all kinds of people there. The electric air taxi is to carry a pilot and 4 passengers at speeds of up to 200 miles an hour over a range of 100 miles.
And that's pretty interesting.
Yes, it is. 100 miles. Is Boston less than 100 miles from New York?
No.
Is Philadelphia? I bet Philadelphia is less than 100
Philadelphia
miles.
is.
Yeah. So you could hire somebody to fly you from New York to Philadelphia, and in a lot of buildings they have helicopter landing sites on the roof of the building.
Yeah, they do.
And you could just go up to the roof, get into the thing, fly to Philadelphia, get there half an hour after you start. Or, the real purpose of these things is to get from a building in, say, Midtown to one of the airports really fast, and you can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
This next picture is one of my favorites. We're up to Wednesday, September 20th, and this picture is one of my favorites for the week.
It's a wind turbine in Nunavut.
In Nunavut.
And Nunavut is the equivalent of like Puerto Rico. It's not a state yet. It's not a province.
It's a territory.
Yeah.
It used to be part of the Northwest Territories, but the Northwest Territories was kind of broken in half. Nunavut, I think, is a little bit bigger than what remains of the Northwest Territories. The northern tier of Alaska west of Hudson's Bay had Yukon Territory and the Northwest Territories. And Yukon Territory is west of the Northwest Territories. It borders on Alaska. Nunavut is north of Manitoba and it includes all those islands, almost all the islands, north of Canada, in the northern part of Canada, because they are Canadian. And it's a big area, but there's not very many people living there. Anyway,
I was just going to say, there's not enough people in there for it to be a province.
no, absolutely not. Yeah. Anyway, this is from the CBC. So.
I'll let you pretend you know how to pronounce it.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Do you want me to try?
Well, it looks like Senek. Well, yeah, you try it.
Senekilluwak. Senekilluwak.
Wind
Senekilluwak.
project represents a major shift in the Nunavut renewable energy policy.
Yeah. A lone windmill in Senekilluwak, Nunavut, which is expected to produce enough power to cut the community's reliance on diesel fuel in half.
By one windmill, huh?
One windmill. And if you look at that windmill, you can see that is not a huge windmill. Turbine, really.
We've seen bigger.
Yeah,
Much
we
bigger.
have. But it's all but a done deal as the Killick Energy Corporation and the Nunavut Nukik-Sautiik Corporation are set to sign an agreement. They've been working on this thing for 6 years. And, you know, this is the community to get heat and power has been relying on diesel for its electricity. So how does diesel get there? Well, I honestly did not look to find out where in Nunavut this was, but I would be unsurprised if their diesel oil wasn't brought in by airplane.
I think you're right.
And if that's the case,
That's not too economical.
it's horribly expensive. And these are people who really don't have jobs available to them. You know, they can't go down to the nearest office building and go one place to the next looking for a job as a secretary. You could be the best typist on earth, and if you are, the only way you can convert that to money in a place like this would be to leave. So this is a big deal for them. And if they can get half of their energy from one wind turbine, they could get the other half from another wind turbine and a battery. So we'll see what's happening. Anyway,
Times they are changing.
they are. We have one of the most depressing pictures I've seen coming up. This is a wildfire.
I was just going to say, it doesn't look depressing until you tell us what it is.
Yeah, it's unpleasant.
It's a wildfire.
It's a wildfire. And you can see, you know, there's houses along this lake or river, whatever that is. And this particular article.
Pretty scary fire.
That's a scary fire, yeah. This comes from Clean Technica.
Insurance majors held fossil fuel assets while cutting coverage due to climate risks.
How bizarre.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
Strange. A report shows that the U.S. insurance sector held $536 billion worth of fossil fuel-related assets in 2019, despite some insurance citing climate-related risk and natural disasters as factors in raising premiums and dropping coverage in high-risk areas. Now, this is something to consider. I'm going to take that picture down because I really dislike it. This is something to consider. These are organizations, you know, an insurance company has to have assets. And the assets have to be liquid, which means that they can be easily sold so that they can cover expenses. Because they might be hit by expenses in flooding, hurricanes, you know,
They want people to buy insurance who don't need insurance.
Well, yes, that's true. And then all of a sudden they get into a situation where a storm like Hurricane Harvey shows up, and they've got, house after house after house in a neighborhood that is not even in a flood zone. It's not in a 500-year flood zone, and the whole neighborhood gets flooded. So these people, because they're not in a flood zone, have been paying, what, $20 a year for flood insurance? And all of a sudden, every one of them is coming and saying, I want my $50,000 or whatever.
This is interesting. I lived in Wardsboro.
Yeah.
And I had a deck, and it stretched out over a river, and I had insurance on it. I had flood insurance on it.
Yeah.
And the river rose, it flooded, and it took away the deck. And they said, you got the wrong kind of coverage. You got flood insurance like they need in Missouri, and you need a different kind of flood insurance, and you can't get it where you live.
Yeah, well,
I got a hold, this is interesting, because I got a hold of Patrick Leahy, and Patrick Leahy waved his magic wand, and I got paid.
Patrick Leahy did help people, didn't he?
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He is. Anyway,
he's retiring,
yes, he's already retired.
Yeah.
So we have Welsh as the new senator from Vermont. I always liked him too.
Yeah, he's a decent guy.
Well, it's one of the things about Vermont politics is that they say that if you wanted to, and you actually tried to do this, you could meet everybody in the Vermont legislature and the governor in 1 year if you tried to do that.
Oh, I bet you could.
Yeah, I heard a story today in the news, as a matter of fact, about a member of the House of Representatives in New Hampshire. The New Hampshire House of Representatives has 400 members.
Wow! How do they get anything done?
That's the whole purpose of having 400 members, is to make sure that nothing gets done.
They're doing a good job of it, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got a nice picture of Storm Daniel as it approaches Libya.
Yes, this is less...
North Africa.
Yes, it is less traumatic looking to me than that horrible picture we had of that wildfire. Anyway,
well, they very rarely have storms like that in the Mediterranean.
Oh, this is crazy. And if you look carefully, you can see a little bit of grease in the upper right-hand corner. It's hard to see. But very clearly, that is North Africa. And that storm just came down and hit Libya. It wandered around the middle Mediterranean for quite a while. This is from CNN.
Horrific Libya flooding made up to 50 times more likely by planet warming pollution. 50 times.
50 times. The World Weather Attribution Initiative, a team of scientists that analyzed the role of climate change in extreme weather events, found that weather warming pollution made the deadly rainfall in Libya up to 50 times more likely to occur and 50% worse.
Wow, a double whammy.
Yeah, this business of weather attribution is something that when we started this show almost 10 years ago, I had never heard of it. This was something that came up, I think, within the last 10 years. They started thinking about attribution and the question of figuring out what was the cause of this storm or the way this storm behaved. And I think Hurricane Harvey and the fact that neighborhoods were flooded that were not even in 500-year flood zones, that's a pretty good example of what they could do, because they were able to say, okay, the Gulf of Mexico was so many degrees warmer than usual, and that meant that a certain amount of water would evaporate that otherwise would never have evaporated. And they could say, okay, and the Air above that water was warmer by so many degrees, and that meant that it could hold so many millions of tons of water vapor that it would not otherwise have held. So when the hurricane hit Texas, it could be holding this huge amount of water vapor that could be dropped out as rainfall. All it needed was, huh?
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, that's what happened. And the people who are doing attribution are able to calculate pretty closely how much more powerful or how much more destructive or whatever this particular storm was than the ones that had come before. So, you know, they can go back to the insurance companies and say, we know who to blame for this destruction that you're paying for, and you know, put two and two together. You guys own the $500+ billion worth of stock in fossil fuels. You're to blame. That's who it is.
Well, the numbers are scary. 50 times more likely.
50 times more likely. Yeah. And
50% worse.
yeah. But you know, these things called medicanes, for practical purposes, you could go back through history and find very, very few of them. I think probably
Mediterranean hurricane.
Yeah, Mediterranean hurricanes. Now they're happening. Why are they happening? Well, probably because the Mediterranean is warmer than it used to be.
Yeah.
And the winds in the Mediterranean have suppressed them. That's been another thing. But all you've got to do is have a lack of suppression during the summer, and you've got conditions for a medicane. So that's our last item.
I think it is.
I'm going to put up the final slide, which is the Energy Week slide, that says, have an absurdly delightful week.
You'll come back and see us now, you hear?
Is your cat waving goodbye, Tom?
No, my cat is not nowhere to be seen. He's hiding somewhere.
He's hiding. He doesn't like these energy shows, maybe.
Well, I can see him. He's sitting on my chair.
Ah. So
He looks comfortable.
What?
He looks comfortable, I said.
Yeah, is he asleep?
Yeah.
So he can't wave goodbye when he's asleep. But I am waving goodbye. Tom is waving goodbye. Tom has already said y'all come back now and see us here. Have a good week. Have an absurdly delightful week.